people wrote in the newspapers, he shouldn't go because it would be such a terrible loss of face for him and the United Nations. And I thought to myself, wrong, he should go. He is the Secretary General. This is a serious problem. He should go. I don't agree with the notion of loss of face, even though I'm well aware of it. I've lived for a long time in Thailand. I'm deeply aware of face as a concept. But I believe he should have gone, and he did. And it was absolutely right that he did. And so even though he got nothing, they would barely see him, they kept him waiting. People said there would be loss of dignity in that. No, I don't agree. He came away saying, I went there because it's truly serious. They didn't treat me properly, they didn't see me, but my visit made the point that this is on my agenda. This is serious and it has to be addressed. There are things that you can do, and you can play a material part in seeing that it remains on Ban Ki-moon's agenda. So there are two more things. One is other players. And Orlando and I have talked about this. Other players, neighbouring countries, in particular India, Thailand, and of course China, or India, China, and then Thailand. They have a role. The Thais were very unhelpful for a long time. When I was ambassador in Bangkok, I can say now I'm no longer officially in that position, but I was appalled. I was appalled at the Thai attitude towards the generals. They were more concerned not to lose influence with the generals than to do anything for the Burmese people, including refugees who came across the border, where they got a very mixed reception. In some cases they sent them back. The Thais were not good. ASEAN took Thailand's lead, and it was not good. I think that's improved a bit now. I think Thailand now recognises that it can't any longer put up its hands and say, it's not our problem. It's an internal problem of Burma. It isn't. It can't any longer say to ASEAN, the Southeast Asian nations, that the lowest common denominator here is it's an internal problem, so we do nothing. ASEAN, including Thailand, now recognises that a responsible position among Southeast Asian nations is to say this is a problem, and is to attempt to, please. It's not an organisation that takes tough decisions. And there's a very historic reason for that. They all have had problems with each other in the past, and some of them still do today. There are disputed islands between the Philippines and Indonesia. There are disputes between Thailand and Malaysia, and Singapore and Malaysia had a bad time for a while. And you know, their operating principle is that there will never be war amongst ASEAN countries, and they will never force a decision down the throat of any individual member. Everything will be by consensus. So, if one country, and this is what Thailand did 10 years ago, if one country says Burma problem's too hard, softly, leave it to them to work out internally, it was unlikely that the other ASEAN countries would say, no, this is not good enough, we have to be more active on this matter, because their principle of consensus leads to lowest common denominator decisions. Thailand's doing less of that now, and ASEAN is becoming more vocal, more concerned about the problem in Burma. And it was interesting that before the Nigerian, who is presently the Secretary General's, Gambari, the Secretary General's Special Representative on Burma, there was Razali from Malaysia, who was the representative. And that was an interesting thing coming from a man who was a national of an ASEAN country. He was prepared to undertake the role of representing the Secretary General, advising him on the issue of Burma. Now, I started to go through the list of India, China, Thailand. It is very, very important that everything possible be done to engage the permanent members of the UN Security Council in this problem. Now, some of them don't care very much in comparison with some of their other problems. For example, France. France is never going. It doesn't have a traditional role in Burma in the way that it did in Indochina. It has other interests, and France can't be relied upon to pick up the issue of Burma in a vigorous way. Even though 4 days ago they had their national holiday, and the motto of which is liberty, fraternity, equality, the great French principles and so on, which if they apply to Burma, give a 0 grade. There's no liberty, there's no equality, there's no fraternity in the Burma of the slaughter. But the French could be relied on, I think, not to take any particular interest in this problem, because they have no interest there. All we would need from the French is that they don't disturb action by others, that they don't block action by others. Turning to the British, well, they'll leave them out for a moment. To the Americans don't have a particular interest in Burma, but they do have global interests, and again, it would be important to keep Americans aware of the problem of Burma, to try and keep Burma on the American agenda, but one could have no particular illusion in believing that they would take a leading role in Burma, unless human rights groups within the United States and in the Congress made a lot of noise politically that was significant in American domestic politics, then they might pay more attention. But that leaves 3 other permanent members of the Security Council. The 5, of course, all have a veto, and nothing much can happen in the UN unless they agree. That leaves 3 others, and what they have in common is that they do have, or 2 of them at least, some interest in Burma. Those are China, Britain, and Russia. I can take Russia aside fairly quickly because it doesn't have an intrinsic interest in Burma, but it is interested in its relationship with the United States and with China, and not being put in a position where China or the United States get the better of them. Russia could be expected to play the Burma card in a way that was consistent with its interests in its relationship with China and its relationship with the United States. But Britain has an interest because of the past. Britain has an interest because of British colonialism in India and Burma. There is, I think, an opportunity, I'm sure your colleagues in Britain feel this strongly, the Burmese community, Karen community in Britain, that there is still the possibility of trying to encourage the British government to play a role in insisting that Burma be on the main international agenda. The one that is hardest of all is the one I've left to last, which is China. China, in many respects, is the key, in my opinion. China has relationships with Burma and with the